Good morning and welcome to this August 13th version of From Sunrise to Sunset with Pastor Gene. We're going to be looking today at 1 Corinthians 14, building, of course, on the love chapter that we just covered yesterday. Now, Paul doesn't want the Corinthians to forget the connection of pursuing love and the spiritual gifts. He appears to be giving some special emphasis to prophecy here in this chapter because it's always important to know what prophetic word and deed needs to be done in the life of the church. Now, many people mistakenly think that prophecy means predicting the future. Not so. Prophecy is to know and to say and to do at the present moment what is faithful to God. Because if we don't, not being true to God carries consequences. I can't say what they'll be, but that's up to God. Now, some people forget this fact and they try to make other gifts seem more important. That's why Paul is saying it's important to focus on prophecy. They make other issues more important, and it's just simply because of their experience and their different levels of understanding, and they tend to think those things are a little bit more important than others. But what we have to remember is that the gospel was spreading throughout the ancient world at this time. It was going into other communities where other languages were being spoken. So it was important that other ears be able to hear it and understand it and hear it in their native tongue. In chapter 14, verse 26, Paul goes right to the heart of the matter. He says, "Let all things be done for building up." I've carried that as a major theme of ministry. If it's building up the body of Christ, then that's where we need to be. That's where we need to be focused. And then in verse 32, he says that God is not a God of disorder, but of peace. Now, this is a very tricky passage here because Paul also talks, this is the part where Paul talks about women being silent in the church. We need to remember when we read these words, whether it was an insertion by somebody else later or Paul actually wrote it, doesn't really make any difference. He's talking about divisions that are happening in the church at Corinth. There's never been any question about that. And apparently there are some women who are being divisive in the life of the church at Corinth. And that's what's being lifted up here. He's not speaking about all women in all churches for all time, as some have erroneously reported and proclaimed and interpreted, because they wanted to support some male domineering agenda and to justify it for their actions. It doesn't work that way. This is a specific problem in a specific ecclesial context that we would do well to ask ourselves about each and every day in our life of faith. So, what are we doing to build up the body of church, the body of Christ at Seaside? What are we doing to build up the body of Christ in the United Methodist Church? I think if we want to be faithful to Christ, then we need to imitate him and not someone else. And we need to figure out what it means to unite in the spirit and in love from sunrise to sunset. Tomorrow, we'll look at 1 Corinthians 15.